Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here today with Fari. Fari is a Vancouverite with a curious mind. Growing up in various places has instilled in her a deep appreciation for different cultures, people, and their unique practices. We definitely have that in common. Fari, how
Right.
are you today? Thank you for joining me.
I'm great. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, and I'm so happy that we're going to have this opportunity to talk and talk about your languages and culture and all those good things. I like to start each episode with the same question, which is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
Okay, so my first language is Shona, and I've learned to speak Setswana, Zulu, Ndebele, a bit of Swahili, some Spanish. I used to understand Arabic, but not anymore. And Afrikaans, kinda, but I'm kinda not really in there, but I can understand some. And that's actually about it. I want to learn Cantonese, but that's another whole story. So
Cantonese is fun. I did a little mini dive into Cantonese and I enjoy it.
I tried it, but it's so different to everything that I ever learned. So it was kind of hard to even get into it.
It is. So, your language, the languages that you speak, you have a pretty wide berth across Eastern and Southern Africa. And I think that's so beautiful how, you're able to kind of move through that region of the world linguistically.
Well, yeah, I understand most of Southern African languages and East Africa, I think I'll be good there too. And I feel like if I got to travel within those regions, I would not have any trouble with anything or anyone, which I think is a really big blessing because not everyone has affinity for languages like I do. And I never really used to think it was anything big until I met friends and they were like, you speak how many languages? So now, I think it's really cool that I can because it comes kind of easy to me than anyone else, I think.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about those languages and how they are maybe connected to one another or how they're similar or different to one another and how you were able to pick them all up.
Funny story. Everything that I speak or can understand was never learned intentionally. It
Hmm.
was always I had to survive to understand these languages. Like for example, I started speaking Setswana when I was about maybe 3 or 4, and not because I wanted to. It's because the friends that I had, like in our neighborhood, all spoke Setswana and no English, so I had to learn that. It wasn't by choice. I was in Ndebele as well. I had to learn that Arabic as well. I was always learned because of my schools or the friends that I had, and I'd have to learn. And all these, the ones I speak from like Southern Africa, Shona, Setswana, Ndebele, Zulu, they're all similar in that they have a lot of the same words. Like for example, the word nyama means meat in all these languages. You understand someone because they have similar words because they are all Bantu, right? And then Swahili, I understand also because it's similar to Shona and Ndebele somehow. And then some Arabic words too on Swahili. So that's why I understood Swahili better than other languages. So I feel like if you understand one of these, you understand most of them. Like it's pretty easy to understand them once you understand one.
Yeah. Is it the vocabulary that remains similar or is it the structure or both?
It's kind of a bit of both. There's a
Okay.
lot of, yeah, vocab is pretty, it's different, but the words are similar and the way you would say something would be the same. Like to say like I want to, like ndi, that's in Shona. And then in Zulu, Ndebele, it would be ngi.
Hmm.
And then Swahili is ni. So it's all like similar wording, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm a fan of Bantu languages from Southern Africa.
Oh, yeah.
I started learning. I took a class and I wasn't able to continue with the class. I need to get back to it. I took a class in Zulu and my brain was like having a party because I just love the way I love the way it sounds. I love the way it works. And for me, it was a challenge because there are sounds in Zulu, and I imagine in some of the other Bantu languages too, that as an English speaker, I didn't know how to say. So it was such a fantastic challenge for me. And I just had so much fun with learning it and learning how, how it works and how, oh my gosh, it's not about me, but
Was it all the clicks in that? You can't do the
I
clicks.
didn't get that far. I didn't get that far. And you know what? I wish I had, if I could find my notebook really quick, I would run and get it. But there was maybe one or two words specifically, they were nouns. And just the way that my tongue had to touch the roof of my mouth or like do something. I remember the teacher just laughing at me. Not like shame on you, but just kind of like because I kept tripping up over the same word. And I was like, okay, I need to give myself some practice with this. But I had the time of my life and I want to get back someday. But we're not here to talk about Zulu just yet. We're
No,
going to
not
talk
yet.
about Shona. Tell me a bit about Shona. Tell me about the language. How are we constructing sentences? How are we using the language, especially as it's used amongst other languages? How are we greeting people? You know, just tell me some things that you find interesting about Shona and want to share with us.
So Shona isn't, no one really speaks Shona like around. You speak Shona like maybe to your grandparents or people that are older to you, but people usually speak an easy Shona to understand. If you had to write like an essay in Shona, I would fail the entire thing because I would use the wrong words. Most of Shona is really a lot of English loan words that we just ended up making them Shona. So like having to like let's say a speech at like my friend's wedding, I wouldn't cut it because I wouldn't have the right vocab to speak to people, the older people, the grandparents, and but then funny thing is in Shona when you greet someone who's older or address them like let's say you're my mother, right? I would say like you is u to like your like a friend, someone younger than a mother, you'd say mu, like muri, you are, and then someone younger would be uri,
Okay.
which is what I find interesting about that. I'm not sure every language has. I don't think other languages would have that.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what they call that, but that's a really interesting thing about Shona.
Does it
And
matter if the elder is a man or a woman?
no, no gender,
Okay.
just
It's
mu is
just
one.
moo. Okay.
Yeah, mu is everything, which is pretty cool. And I feel like because I have friends from other countries, like from Africa, Southern Africa, East Africa, I don't really speak Shona in general. They speak a lot of their languages, which is how I learned it, but I wouldn't speak Shona to my friends for that long. It'd be like a 5 word thing. It wouldn't be like a whole sentence in Shona because we don't speak Shona.
Mm,
Because it's a really deep language and no one really understands like most of the Shona words. We don't use any Shona words on a day-to-day basis.
okay.
Like for example, if I were to go visit my grandmother and her friends and I had to speak in Shona like the whole entire time, wouldn't cut it. And people would say like, oh, she's a snob, she's whatever, but like it's just I was never, taught how to speak it that way.
Hmm. So is this a you and your cohort thing, or is this like in general? Like if I was to go out to Zimbabwe, like
Mhm.
am I not encountering people who speak completely in Shona or is it I'm trying to
Okay, they would speak in Shona, but it wouldn't be the real Shona. You know what I
okay,
mean?
okay.
There's a lot of slang as well. It just depends on like where you grew up and how you grew up. So you would
Mhm.
speak Shona, but not the deep Shona, Like it wouldn't be the
Right.
fluent Shona like on paper.
Okay. Can you give me an example of how you would speak to someone or how, you and your friends would speak? Like, what would that sound like?
Okay, like if I would say I'm going to the shops, I would say looking at my shops, right? But then if I was speaking to like an older person, it would be maybe a longer sentence. Like I would say looking at my shops, but I would say I use the word but. I wouldn't use the Shona word for but, which I'm not even sure what is that. I don't even know what that word is, but and then with an older person, I would use the full word and the way it should be used because that's just how it should be
Right.
and have to be respectful and all other stuff.
So are you hearing this more of a fluency in Shona amongst people who are of older generations? Are they mixing less than people who are younger are doing?
They definitely mix less than us, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, they still mix it.
How interesting. I love
It's
when
very
languages
interesting.
mix. That's so cool.
So speaking Shona within Zimbabwe is common for people who grew up with Shona parents, right? But whenever people move their children out of the country, let's say move out to South Africa or the UK or anyway, their kids don't end up speaking Shona anymore. And something to do with like proximity to whiteness. If your kid speaks Shona, they're not as refined as the others, which is wrong, obviously. But I find that a lot of parents who move their children out of Zimbabwe always start teaching them like the language and the culture and values. And it's very important to know because a lot of Zimbabweans left Zimbabwe in the late, I think, 80s to go to England to escape the political regime, and also because there were no visas or like anything else to go. So a lot of people went to England, and their children don't understand or know how to speak the language, and that loses like all the culture and values. So that's really important to note, because as someone who didn't really grow up in Zimbabwe, like young, I could speak because my parents put an effort to make sure we would go back home like often enough and understand and speak with our relatives and everyone else who was still back home.
Now, another part of what I wanted to ask you is you mentioned people going to England and losing their language. And that kind of makes sense because, like, you're not makes sense, but it makes sense why that would happen because we know how England has a history with racism.
Mhm.
Um, of Zimbabweans who have gone to other countries in Southern Africa, do you notice that they're able to hold on to their language, or have you noticed that they've been able to hold on to their language and customs in a different way than the English Zimbabweans have, or not?
Yeah, for the most part, most people who move around Southern Africa from Zimbabwe still can speak the language, but if their parents don't teach them, they don't. So some of them actually don't speak it, even if they have like a Zimbabwean community or whatever. But people who move around in the Southern Africa than England have a different attachment to the language and the culture. I feel like people who move out of the continent kind of stay stuck in time. You know, like they
Mm,
wouldn't know the cool things. They wouldn't know what people do these days. And there's this actually a funny thing. There's a dance people do in Zimbabwe. It's called the Borodale. And it's not really a cool thing to do, but I've had people who grew up in like kind of England and everywhere else in the Northern Hemisphere tend to stick to that as like a Zimbabwean thing to do, but no one else who has been around Zimbabwe or like people would do that as like a dance because it's just not a thing anymore. But to
okay.
them, they still stick to that as like a way to hold on to their culture, which is funny to me because see how everything changes as you move around the world.
What dance has replaced that one currently?
Nothing really, but so Zimbabwe has a really strong, I don't know if you know this, dance hall culture.
Mm,
So the Jamaican, because of the independence struggle in the 1980s, Bob Marley came to perform at our independence rally. So people have a strong culture to dancehall, and we have our own Zimbabwean version of dancehall. It's called Zim Dancehall. So it's like it's a whole culture. Like people speak patois, they have dreadlocks, they're Rastafarian, they have this whole rude boy thing going on. It's a whole thing now. So everyone who listens to Zim music right now listens to Zim dancehall because it's the it thing right now. It's evolving a lot since obviously way back then. But right
mhm.
now, there's a lot of Zim dancehall dances people would know or do.
This conversation's about to take a turn because Zim Dance Hall is something I need to know more about. Like, okay, so as soon as you said Bob Marley, I'm like, yes, he was very, he performed at the concert, and I know that it was important to him. And I just saw the movie, so I feel like I had a refresher course on Bob Marley. But tell me about the Zim Dance Hall. Tell me who are we listening to? What language are we singing in? Like, what are we wearing? Tell me everything that you know about it.
I don't know. Okay, I know enough because I like some of the artists. One of my
Uh-huh.
favorite artists right now, his name is Killer T.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he sings in Shona, no English at all. I don't think there's any English in his music, but it's a lot of Shona slang
Okay.
that I don't understand. I would have to like look up stuff, but a lot of Shona slang that I don't know, and some patois in some of his songs. There's him. There's a guy called Soldier Love. He passed away, rest in peace. There's so many of them, and there's Silent Killer. Even the names, like it's a whole thing. But there's loads of them, new ones coming up as well. So most of the music they sing about is about, how Bob Marley used to like emphasize, liberation, and so they sing mostly about their struggles growing up, not really being in affluent communities. Most people who sing this music didn't really grow up in, any. They grew up in poverty basically.
Mm-hmm.
They sing about that and their upcoming and how that's shaped who they are and their lives right now. So modern music is fun, very fun dancing in the clubs, but then if you listen to the lyrics, they're very profound,
I
which is what I
see.
appreciate about that music. That's why it's my favorite genre of music right now.
Yeah.
It's funny because also growing up when I was about 15, 14, I thought like Zim Dancehall was ghetto because my brother loved it. He was like, he's never been he's always been stuck to his culture. I wasn't really growing up because I didn't really grow up around people back home. So it took me
Mhm.
a while to actually start appreciating the culture and music and everything. So now I'm like stuck into it. I'm, head down. And he's like, I mean, yeah, okay, whatever. But like he doesn't really care, but I'm into it. I know everything now. Because I spent so much of my time not understanding who I was and not wanting to be a typical Zimbabwean. And now I'm just attached to it. So that's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you listen to Jamaican dancehall, maybe alongside Zim Dancehall, do you notice some of the language being similar at all? Is there any borrowing from Jamaican patois that has made it into Zimbabwean music, or even the Shona that they use when they're performing those songs?
There definitely is a lot, but I don't actually know a lot of
Okay.
patois to know. But there definitely is. Like people would say like wagwan. I know it's like very basic, but wagwan is it's used a lot in Zimbabwe
Hmm.
as like what's going on. There's lots of people that I don't actually know them, but there definitely is a lot of Jamaican patois in Zim dancehall music. I love that. I love it.
Oh my goodness. This is I love the moments when I have like a total like, wait a minute, I did not even know that. And then I'm gonna go into the deepest rabbit hole available to listen to more of this music, Fari. This is fantastic. I love
Yeah, I
it.
love it too because it's stigmatized to listen to Zim dancehall back
Mm,
home because
hmm.
people feel like it's not the most refined thing to be listening to or to be behaving. Because people who sing that music and know about what it means to them are not they're people who live in poverty, right? So people look down upon it. It's getting better now, but in previous years it wasn't really a thing. But now
Mm.
everyone's getting, everyone's woke now, which I love. Everyone's woke. They understand it's important to know your culture and your people. So I'm really enjoying this right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. What do people, so if this is kind of like looked down upon, what do people prefer? Like what's more respectable to listen to?
Oh, pop music, like American
Oh,
music.
oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not like Zim pop or something? Like,
I mean, yeah, kind of, but still, it's more like Western music. People would like because it's all in English, right?
tell me about Ndebele. Tell me how that factors into your language garden. What are we calling it? Your portfolio of languages. How have you used that language, and how has it become an important language in your life?
So I started speaking Ndebele when I was about 9. Again, I had to learn because no one would teach me anything else. I had to learn Ndebele. I went to a school in the south of Zimbabwe. So Ndebele is spoken in Ndebele land, which is the southern part of Zimbabwe.
Hmm.
Because the Ndebele came from Southern Africa, South Africa. They were from the Zulu tribe, but they moved up north to Zimbabwe. Is
Hmm.
how that came about. Yeah, so I learned that when I was in a new school and no one wanted to teach me like anything else but Ndebele. So that's how I started speaking it. And then before that, I actually had one of my nanny who spoke Ndebele to me, and then I ended up learning it because she taught me first before I ended up going to the new school, which was a blessing. Ndebele is spoken in Shona words. Like there's a word you'd say like it means how you doing. You'd say kanjani. That's Ndebele, but in Shona it's become part of all vocabulary, even though it's not really part of Shona. And there are a couple more words you use from the Ndebele that we use speak in Shona. I don't know how that happened. It just ended up being Shona words. So it's important to know that the Ndebele and Shona people have a lot of tension because there was a war, the Gukurahundi War. I'm not sure which years it was in, but then Ndebele fought against the Shona, and there was a lot of genocide with the Ndebele people from the Shona side. So there's a bit of tension there in general, also because it's north and southern. So Ndebelés don't really interact with Shona people unless they would really have to, and we don't really intermarry. I mean, sometimes people do, but it's not really commonplace for that to happen. But for me, learning Ndebele was important for me just to be able to navigate most parts of Zimbabwe and just good for me to add to my language garden, as we said. And it's funny because most of my thoughts, when I think out loud, so I don't think in the bed, not in Shona. Also affected
Mm,
how my thought processes work, which is funny. And yeah,
that's really interesting. So you think when you think to yourself, you think in Ndebele.
I think in many language, but mostly in Ndebele. Shona sometimes it's both, but Ndebele comes up sometimes when I'm frustrated.
Do you feel like you have more of an emotional attachment to Ndebele than you do to Shona?
I never thought of that. I might also because I learned Zulu, which is like Ndebele, and a lot of the music that I listen to is in Zulu,
Mm.
and I can express myself better, kind of in Ndebele. Not as fluent as I am in Shona, I think, but because Ndebele is more it has more words we actually use in every day. It's better for me to express myself using that language and not Shona.
I think it's interesting that this language you started learning in school at the age of 9 is the one that you feel like you have more of an ability with when you're thinking to yourself and thinking out loud. And I don't know how common or uncommon it is for people to think aloud in their language that's not their mother tongue or not their native language, not their first language, I should say.
Right.
So maybe I'm overthinking it or overanalyzing, just wondering like because I think that's so cool. I already think it's cool that you have all these languages, right? But like I think it's cool that that's the one that you are the most expressive with.
I've never actually thought about it like that. I'm gonna go like do a deep dive into what this means or if it is that common.
I mean, I wonder, I don't mean to project, but it's like I wonder if it's like if that time of your life was pivotal for you, if that time in your life was, because I remember being 9 and I feel like when I was 9, I was starting to notice a lot more things and not just like the kiddie things. I was starting to notice the grown-up things too. And I feel like that's the age when you're just things are starting to click, you know? So that's why I'm wondering too, like I'm no psychologist, but hmm.
Might be onto something actually, because that was actually my first time living in Zimbabwe. Yeah, at 9, now when I learned Ndebele. So that actually could be a reason. It was actually a very pivotal moment in my life as well.
Mm.
So, yeah, I'm gonna think about this really hard now. I have to go
Oh.
think about this. Yeah, because I'd never lived in Zimbabwe. Like I lived there when I was 2
Hmm.
to Botswana. So I only came back when I was 9 for a
Hmm.
bit and then left again. I'm gonna go look into that. I'm so stunned.
Sometimes we have breakthroughs on this show. It happens.
It's like a mini therapy session.
Oh no, I don't want to be a therapist. Sorry. When you're talking about north, that's like Harare.
Yes.
Okay. And then south is closer.
Blowayo. I don't
Okay.
know if you can see it on there.
Okay. So we've got a lot of languages in this region. And you also mentioned Botswana, you mentioned South Africa. As you moved around in this region as a child or even as an adult and being able to move the way that you want, what is communication like for you?
Well, whenever we'd go to like when I was younger, I didn't really have to speak to anybody at the border because I was younger. My parents used to drive us around from like Botswana to South Africa or to Zimbabwe and would never really fly. So they would speak Setswana as well and some Zulu. So it was never really a hassle for us to get through to anything because there's a lot of stigma against Zimbabweans traveling around because we left the country for, greener pastures. So at the border and at the airport, they'll speak to you in Zulu and they know you don't understand them, but they just do it to exert some kind of power, you know? Yeah, that's mostly in South Africa and Botswana. So that was the thing. My parents understood and they could, navigate their way easily with their children. So
And how about
yeah.
now?
Well, I don't really go back that much anymore, but I'd
Mhm.
love to go back right now as a grown up just to see everything differently. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like understanding the language is really important, especially in that region, because you're expected to know how to speak to everyone. They speak English too, but they don't want to speak to you in English because they just don't want to.
Hmm. And they shouldn't have to.
Yeah, so they speak in their language to you. If you don't understand, they get upset. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Really?
Yeah, in South Africa, very much so, and Botswana. If you were to go to South Africa, they'll think you're African, right? They'll speak to you in Zulu. You don't respond, they get upset. It's like, it's what are you doing in my country then? It's a whole thing. It's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother story.
Wow. So we've got a lot of tension going on.
Yeah, a lot of tension on the South. A lot of
Wow.
tension.
Okay. Have you had a moment where you've encountered other Bantu languages that you're not too familiar with that maybe you were able to piece things together?
Yeah, for sure. I have friends from Malawi, so they speak Chichewa, one of the languages there. That's similar to all the four that I speak as well, just a couple of words here and there. But the diction, it's just similar words. And there's languages in Zambia. I think it's Bemba, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to Shona, Swahili, Zulu, Ndebele. Like it's all just one whole thing. But I feel like I would understand more languages if I had more people that spoke the languages around me. Because for me, it's kind of easy to just pick on stuff
Mm-hmm.
quickly. Because Zimbabwe and I think it was Zimbabwe, Malawi, and Zambia, and South Africa, I'm not sure, we're all like one country before the borders were put in. We're basically one. So the
Mm.
languages are going to be similar. The cultures are going to be similar as well. People are going to be Zimbabwean, Malawian, South African, Zimbabwean. A lot of mixtures going on there.
Yeah,
A lot of that
yeah.
happening.
I need to visit
You
Fari.
need to.
Now that I'm looking at this map, I'm like, damn, I'm really I'm missing out.
There's so much to see, so much to see, so much to learn. I think what would shock you the most is the respectability culture going on there. It's insane. Not insane, but it's just really different, for the average person. Obviously, the whole women and men dynamics are really different to how it is in North America. One example, which I really hate, but when if I get married to someone, obviously they pay a dowry and they get my family cows, right? You pay
Mm,
a bride price. That has to happen or doesn't count as a marriage before you do the actual court signing and everything.
right.
So once a woman is handed over to the man's family, she becomes like their
Property.
property basically. And in the first week after the bride price is paid, it's like a whole ceremony. People drink, laugh, happy, and then she'll in the morning of the next day, I think it's like 3 a.m., like early morning, her and her friends will have to go over to the family's house and clean the house and wash and cook for everyone until they kind of like judge if she's the right woman for you. If she can't cook and clean, then like why are you marrying this woman?
Uh-huh.
And
So
that's
this is after the price has been paid.
after it's been paid. Yeah, you have to go
Okay.
prove yourself. Basically, it's lack of a better word, but prove that you're
Mm-hmm.
the right
So,
one.
so what if you can't cook and clean? What happens to the cows?
You have to know how to cook and clean.
Okay. So there's no refund.
The refunds actually happens, but usually like deeper into the marriage. Like if the man thinks she's not the best wife, she's not cleaning for me or my kids, I don't want her to take her back.
So this still happens.
No, it definitely still happens.
Is this forgive me. Is this everybody? Is this a rural thing or is this a city thing or
Everybody, city girls in their nails and then their long hair, they be outside sweeping and cooking. Yeah, everybody.
so how many cows are we talking about?
I have no idea. I think four cows
Okay.
is what gets given. And then there's money that they have to give. It's well, different kinds of money. It's money for like they give your mom money for raising you, your dad money for just different things, your aunties, your uncles, your siblings. Everyone needs to get money
Mm-hmm.
for raising you and making you the person you were. So they have to negotiate like how much we're gonna pay for her. If she's not a virgin, they're gonna pay less.
Right.
And if there's different things that goes within that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it has to happen.
Because I'm wondering if you're in the city, where are you keeping these cows?
Everyone has a rural home, so yeah,
Oh,
everyone has a rural
okay.
home. Most people, actually, I think everyone that I
Okay.
know at least has a rural home. So the cows could be at your the cows are somewhere. They're somewhere to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're not in your apartment or
No,
anything.
no, no. Not in the yard, but everyone's got somewhere for the cows to be. And then I
Right.
think they slaughter the cows. I don't know when, but they use them for food or whatever.
Mhm. This is I love this because I think that a lot of people, especially in the US or Canada, they'll hear they'll hear this practice and they may not think that it's a current practice. So, it's definitely still going on. And from what you've experienced or from who you know, what you know, how do women feel about this currently?
So, a lot of talk about this on Twitter a couple of months ago, I think. A lot of people are against it, but then there is no way to fight it. It's going to happen and it will happen. some people think it's cruel and sexist, right? But then some people are like, oh, but that's our culture. That's how it's always been. But it doesn't mean that that's right because it's always been happening. It's like, oh, it's been happening forever. But like, should it happen forever? Can you not change? People evolve, right?
Right.
But people talk about how it should continue because that's who we are. We shouldn't let the Western world like change how what we do things. And I'm like, but things have meanings and practices have meanings. And if women want things to change, we're gonna have to fight this somehow, because
Mhm.
it's not gonna change if we just keep being complacent with what's happening.
Yeah. Are there things in the culture that excite you? If this is something that you, are questionable about, what are some things about the culture that excite you that you maybe some things that you miss or things that you can't wait to go back and experience or things that you're extraordinarily proud of?
I really miss how people respect older people. Like I'm older now, I'm late 20s, but like I was last home like 5 years ago and I was, almost 21 maybe. And as a grown woman now, I would go back if I were to go back home, people would talk to me as an adult. Like I'm not the little girl anymore. It's like, they'll be like, so everyone says good morning, or like there's a way you greet someone who's older than you. You say makadi and you're like, oh, put your hands together and you kind of like curtsy, like kind of like kneel, kind of.
Hmm.
So that would be me. I'll be like the auntie now because it's like hi auntie. So I really miss that culture because here it's like everyone's just the same. It's just hi hi. There's no respect to anyone who's older. So I really miss that. I didn't really enjoy how children are kind of treated as less than everyone else. Like as a child, you're not allowed to do too much because you're just a child. Like relax, sit down. And the thing I read the other day actually that relates to this. In Sweden, there's a thing they call lagom, which is like not too much. Don't eat too much, don't laugh too much, don't whatever too much. And I feel like in Zimbabwean culture, at least from what I know, as a child, you can't be too much. Don't be too happy. Don't cry too loud. Don't laugh too loud. Don't be too upset. So I don't really enjoy that part of the culture, but for the most part, I just like I enjoy the respectability politics of it.
Mhm.
But yeah,
I wonder if that's a British thing.
it
Because
probably is. We're a British colony, right? It could be. It
yeah,
probably
because
could
that
be.
sounds a lot like how I was raised, and my family's
Yeah.
from the Caribbean, so it's like not too much, don't do too much, sit down, be quiet, fold your hands.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly. So I feel like as I've grown up, I've become less like that because I think I wasn't really quite not quiet, but I was, the good kid. Didn't do anything wrong, didn't, just quiet. And then now I'm like, what the hell was that for? Now I don't care anymore because I can do whatever I want.
Good. That's the way to be. That's the way to be, I think. You're in diaspora now. You're part of the diaspora. Where are you finding your people? And I don't mean like you people. I mean
Mhm.
like where are you finding? Let's try this again because someone is going to take that out of context.
Mhm.
Where are you finding the people with whom you share your heritage, with whom you share your language, your culture, and the people that come from the same part of the world that you do?
Mhm. Well, in this city, it's a bit. I don't really have many friends from Zimbabwe. There are people here, but it's not really a community in Vancouver. There is, it's just not my community. People I know here, for the most part, who are Zimbabwean meet through church. Like that's the community. I don't go to church, so I wouldn't really know more Zimbabweans than the ones I just meet when, the ones I just been knowing. So that's a whole different thing because people back home it's a Christian country, right? So a lot of people go to church from a young age and they never stop. So they find the community there for the most part. I guess we would never be part of that community right now. But I feel like other cities like Toronto might have a bigger community, I think, and other little cities in Canada. But for the most part, the diaspora, I feel like England and Australia have a lot of the, Zimbabweans and the community and everything. We're everywhere, literally everywhere. No, no joke.
England doesn't surprise me, but Australia does.
There's a lot of people in Australia, a lot of Zimbabweans. I have cousins there as well.
Really?
Yeah, I've got cousins in Australia and in England. Never been, but got family there.
Hmm. So your cousins are in, let's say, Four Corners, right? They're in Zim, they're in England, I'm assuming you have cousins in Zim. I don't know if you
Yeah,
said
I
that.
do.
Okay, so
Yeah, I do.
Australia, Zim, England, and you're here in Vancouver. So we know what connects you. What do you notice sets you apart from one another? Like, how are the Australians different from the Brits? And how are you different from the, or, you're, where you are in Vancouver, how is that different from your cousins in Australia or England? Like, what sets you all apart?
Well, I barely see them, but I know for sure that people in England and Australia, just in general, are likely to stick with their Zim culture and values because they have community, right? But I don't really have that here. So I'm just out there. I feel like I'm more liberal than everyone else because I don't have any ties to my community here or anyone. So that changes like how I think and how I carry myself and stuff like that, which is an important thing to note. But yeah, and a lot of people, I know in Australia, they're likely to get married young, not young, but like 24, that's young to me. But if you compare people who live in Canada, not so much because the laws are different here. Just different. Yeah, the culture is different here. And I think we're open to more people to interact with. We have a wider community of just other Africans in comparison to other places.
Mm-hmm. You also speak Swahili. So I imagine that, or I hope that, I don't know. I'm assuming a lot here. I'm sorry. I take that back. But I wonder, I'm curious to know if your Swahili, do you get to practice with your friends from East Africa who speak Swahili?
So
If
my
any of them
flatmate
do? Mhm.
is Swahili. I actually learned to speak Swahili through her because she would speak and I'd understand. So yeah, I learned more through her and my other friends because they speak in Swahili. I'm like, I got that. I know what that means. I understand that. So I'd love to go visit like Kenya, Tanzania, and just see how terrible my Swahili is because I feel like I'll get them and be like, oh, she's not from around here. Because it's not that great, but I understand like the basics.
Mhm.
It's not great at all, but I can understand a couple of things. So I
Yeah.
like that I have someone to like help me understand more, and I teach her Shona as well. So it's like an exchange of
Oh, I
languages.
love that.
Yeah,
How fun. I want to come
it's so
over
fun.
for dinner.
Come through.
Okay, so when you're listening to your flatmate speak Swahili or
Mhm.
anyone else, and you have Shona, you have Ndebele, you have Zulu, do you hear any similarities, or are you picking up anything similar in the structure or in the vocabulary of the language or the usage of it?
There's so many similarities. It's how I actually got to learn it better. The way we say almost everything is similar. Just a couple of words obviously are different, but if I were to speak Shona, someone who speaks Swahili would understand what I'm saying because they can pick up a couple of words in that. And I guess the Arabic that I know, the little Arabic that I know helps because I understand some of the Swahili in there because of the Arabic. But yeah, they're similar languages. They're very similar.
Mhm.
They're like cousins, really, really distant cousins. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would hear somebody say, like a Shona speaker, for example, that maybe you're hearing it from a distance or you're kind of half paying attention to something on TV. Is there
Mhm.
something that someone could say? Is there a specific phrase or a word or a tonality that someone could use that you would instantly know? Like, oh, that person's speaking Shona, or maybe an accent or something that would make you say, oh, this person's from Zimbabwe or this person's from
I'm actually
Botswana
really
or
good
something.
at spotting accents. It's actually really fun for me. So I usually do that. And my friend was like, how do you know? I'm like, how do you not hear that? Like, how do you not understand where they're from the way they speak? And also people who speak Shona, Shona is a very rough, like not rough, but they say it sounds rough, like we're fighting when we speak. If you speak Shona, there's some words that you don't say the same as other people. Like for example, there's different Shona accents. It depends on what kind of school you went to, how you were raised. So it just would depend on how you would sound speaking English. If you take the word bag in Shona, I mean English, sorry, bag. If you're from like Zimbabwe and you grew up speaking just Shona, you would say like big. It wouldn't be a like a bag. It's a big. So a couple words you would know that, I know where you're from.
I want to know about the culture. I want to know some things about the culture. Like, what are we wearing? What are we celebrating? Where are we going? Where are we coming from?
Thanks for bringing that up because we don't actually have any Zimbabwean traditional clothing. We don't. I I swear I hate it. I get so frustrated. We don't have anything. They took it from us. They took it all. The British came and took everything.
They took it.
We don't. I don't know if we have something. I don't know about it. I've never because so when people get married, they have like a whole, the ceremony where they give the money out and like talk about the cows and everything. People usually wear like traditional dress like in South Africa and other countries and Nigeria. But in Zimbabwe, we just wear like regular kente cloth. We don't have any Zimbabwean traditional dress. If we do, it's just the cow hide that we used to wear like back in the day. But we don't really have anything. And I'm so sad because I've been trying to understand and see where I could find stuff, but we don't have traditional dress. People just wear regular jeans and tee. Like we don't have as this is Zimbabwean dress. We don't have that.
Not even during like a wedding or
We wear whatever like just kente cloth
huh.
and then make it into like a dress or whatever, or just other stuff. But no.
Is there are there any kente patterns that are specific to Zimbabwe?
Yeah, but they're not really like for clothing. They have like these guinea fowl pattern stuff. But it's not really for clothing. It's just like for like maybe tablecloths and curtains and stuff, but not really clothing. No, we don't really have that. I've been
Mm.
trying to look, but it's can't find anything. Even we had this dance that I've heard about. The short name, I think it's called the maybe the Mbende. I'm not sure, but it's like it involves like using your waist and to see men or women or like doesn't matter men, women, men or women, whatever, and you dancing using your waist. And when the British came, they changed the dance. It's a bit more, it's a bit more conservative now, and they call it the Jerusalem now.
What?
Yeah, 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 I know. But they took up things away and changed stuff. Yeah, I don't think we have any traditional dress. A lot of things change. And like a lot of people who grew up around my time, like in the 1996 to 7s, all have English names. And Shona, we have two names, Shona and English, because we had to, well, because our parents thought it was supposed to have English names. Now, I don't think it was anything to do with anything else.
Mm.
Everyone has the English and Shona name. And then people who grew up in like maybe the 70s, 60s have English names mostly only and no Shona names. It depends. But yeah, people's parents had to conform to the British. People wanted to go to like good schools, right, with white people, and then they have English names, and that will lead to people with names like me, like someone would be called Lovemore. That's a name and it's a common name because their parents were trying to sound, English.
Mm-hmm.
You can speak English. So a lot of names people have, and it's actually a joke on the internet about Zim names being so funny because there's names like Progress is someone's name, Progress, and other names what the parents want them to do, like progress in life. A name like Success, you know, that's a common thing in Zim.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That makes me think of something I should have asked you way back in the beginning of this episode, but was there loss of language between generations? Is it something like someone who's of your generation can speak in Shona, can speak in Ndebele? Maybe the parents don't have a good handle on it, and the grandparents are completely fluent in it and can, very versatile with the language. Have you noticed anything like that happening?
Not really for Shona. Well, Shona has different dialects,
Mm-hmm.
and the less common dialects is a language called, I don't know if it's a dialect or it's a different language, but it's called Chindau, which is like Shona, but not really. And no one really speaks that a lot anymore just because people who speak it usually like live in the villages or like it's not really a common language to speak. So I find that with languages like that, no one really understands or knows how to speak because it's not common anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. But for the most part, I think Shona is still pretty. So like we still have the language that they didn't take that from us. We still have that,
Okay.
fortunately. Yeah, just other things like
Fortunately.
culture and values changed because of that. And I always find it funny because the British came, right, and people practiced like African spirituality. And then obviously with that changing, everyone became just like Christians. Everyone goes to church, everyone has a Christian name, everyone's more conservative now. And I feel like Zimbabwe is a conservative, people are conservative now because of that. I don't feel like it was like that in the past, but then now there's no going back
Mm.
because our grandparents and everything, they're stuck on that. They're
Mm.
stuck in those ways. And then you would move somewhere. Let's say you go to England now. No one's really that conservative anymore. But like back home, everyone's still stuck behind because of what was changed in
Mm.
the past. Yeah.
Yeah. Did the British also bring their food or change any of the foods that are eaten? Did they influence any of the, I feel like people are going to say the British don't have any food. They don't. I know. But did their did their culture influence any of the ways that food is eaten in Zim?
Definitely. I feel like people don't really eat a lot of traditional Zimbabwean food anymore because it's just not a thing. Like if you were to go to a Zimbabwean house today, you'd have regular ass rice and chicken and like nothing special, right? But I feel like as time the people are, people are changing, people are understanding more about their cultures. And I feel like with my generation, there's more of that. So people are bringing back traditional food. We have a tradition we eat it in Southern Africa. It's called sadza, which is like it's like cornmeal that's boiled with water, and it's like a hard brown bowl. You eat it with veggies and meat. That's like common happens eaten by everyone. But there's like other things that people don't eat anymore, like arrowroot, just other things you mix up. But now it's like not a thing anymore because we live in the state now. We have money, we can eat whatever we want. So no more traditional foods.
Mm.
That changed from the British too. We don't really have a lot of traditional Zimbabwean meals because of that anymore.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What about when you were younger and you were living there? Like, were there things that you had that were more traditional and maybe things that have changed since then, since the 90s?
Not quite. No, if anything, I'd eat traditional would be like back at my grandma's in the village. No, nothing in the city though. Not in the
Okay.
city. Everyone eats like like potatoes, chicken, salad, like nothing, nothing different to what everyone else eats. Or
Yeah.
yeah,
What did you enjoy eating when you were there? What did you look forward to? What were some of your favorite things?
I don't really have many favorites, but I really enjoy. So we eat pork. Have you ever had pork trotters before?
Hmm.
I really that was my favorite thing to eat with sadza, the white mealy meal thing, and with veggies. And there's a meal I like. It's called manuchu, which is a Ndebele word, which is manushu. So that would be it's like peeled cornmeal. It's like white, and that's boiled, and you have it with beans, and you mix it up. You can have it with sugar or salt, or you can mix that up and then like make it into like a stew with like meat and veggies and everything. Really used to enjoy that. That's a typical Zimbabwean meal. But then I feel like with food, there's class with the food you eat. So if were to have that and your friends came over, they'd be like, "Well, we having this like, are you guys, you guys okay? Are you guys not doing well?" But for me, I would have that as a normal ass because I wouldn't really care. But as a whole, it would be, oh, they're having minushi today, like things aren't okay at their house, but it's just food. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of bean meals are considered like as low class meals. And then if you're having meat in your meals, I mean, like you have a good, people don't want that money, don't really eat meat every day because it's expensive to have meat all the time.
Hmm.
So I find that food in Zimbabwe is very class based, like how we eat, how we dress, how we speak. If I were to go into let's say I'm at the market and trying to buy something, from the vendors there, and I would speak in my regular English accent,
Hmm.
I would get upcharged because I went to a private school. I sound different, and I always prefer to go and speak in regular. Shona, they would know, okay, it's okay, you can pay or whatever. But a lot of classism in Zimbabwe, I feel
Hmm.
a lot of it, yeah.
Another thing that the British brought.
Even just speaking Shona, like with your friends in high school,
Hmm.
was just, why are you speaking Shona? It's my language, but you'd be looked down upon if you speak Shona. It's like, oh, she's ghetto, she speaks Shona. But I'm like, this is our language. We speak Shona. That's changed over time. I'm really grateful because I never really cared because it sounded stupid to me. Like, what do you mean I'm speaking Shona? Is it not everyone's language in this city, at least?
Yeah. And there's so many languages spoken in Zimbabwe. So
Right.
is that the stratification? Is it English and then Shona and or does it does it matter? Is it English above all?
English is above all.
Okay.
And Ndebele and Shona is the most common because most of the country speaks it. And there's Ndebele speakers obviously in the south and other languages like Xhosa, but that's not known. No one knew that until like just recently. Xhosa, Setswana, Kalanga, I think. There's other languages, but they're not really spoken by many people
Hmm.
in Zimbabwe. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't even really know much about those.
This is something I really kind of wish I had the brain power and the education to do just this colonial. It does so much more than just take away our autonomy. Like it just affects and permeates so many parts of who we are for generations and so much of our culture for generations. So I always love to hear that people are changing that and people are seeing that, they're reclaiming, they want what's theirs, they want back what was taken from them, and they want to
Mhm.
celebrate what, their birthright.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to undo and unpack and
Mhm.
change.
Yeah.
I'm just glad people are, people care now.
When we first spoke a few months ago, you mentioned caterpillars,
Mhm.
and I can't get over it. I don't know if you want to talk about it or not, but I'm going to
I'd
ask
love
you
to.
because but you were telling me that someone had brought you back some caterpillars from South
Mhm.
Africa,
From Zimbabwe,
from
actually.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Okay. Please tell me about these caterpillars.
So these caterpillars are called mopani worms,
Mm-hmm.
and they come out from a tree. So I think it's each, I don't know, I think December-ish, you start seeing them like on the ground, just spraying across the roads. People usually like cut off a branch from a tree and just take them home, or like pick them from the road, like side of the road. Growing up in Botswana, we had a mopani tree at the house. So whenever they'll start, coming out, my parents would make us go to the tree, grab a branch and go. So you have to like I don't know what you call the word, but you have to take out all the gunk, but
Okay.
you like squeeze them out and stinks, and they're prickly as hell. So that hurts as well. It smells terrible, but my dad loved them. So we always go do it with him or for him. And they're really, really, really tasty. I mean, the caterpillars, but they're really, really tasty. They can be had like just dried, like cook them and dried with salt, and like in a stew with like chili and pepper and with sadza, the white thing we eat. But
Mhm.
that too is also something about class. No one really eats those. You wouldn't find that at someone's house for dinner because,
Mm,
you know, it's a whole class thing. Why would you be eating that right now? You have to,
why not?
show,
Yeah.
I know, you'd have to express your class or, your economic class according to what you eat.
Hmm.
But I really enjoy them. People find it disgusting because they're worms, caterpillars, whatever you want to call them. But they're really tasty. I'm not sure if you'd like them, but they're really, really tasty.
The ones that are dried, are they crunchy or are
They're
they
super
chewy?
crunchy. Very,
Okay.
very crunchy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because I have to know, can they be prepared like spicy?
Yeah, they can. My dad loves them spicy. They're really good like that. I really enjoy them like that. And funny you mentioned that because someone I know, she started like uh, a catering business in Zimbabwe, and she like went to university outside and came back home to start a catering company. And she makes all this traditional food now for everyone to eat, like for weddings and stuff. And I like that she's bringing that back into everyone's lives as a normal thing too. We can eat this stuff. It's our food. That's
Hmm.
how we grew up. So I really enjoy that she's doing that for everyone else to start appreciating our food
Hmm.
better. Because she makes those too for people's weddings. And
Yeah.
I love that.
It's something that I can imagine can be flavored in so many different ways.
For
Like you
sure.
can, it's just such a good base that you can add, curry powder or, hot pepper
Hot
or,
peppers are amazing with that.
mm. So when you eat them, do you get a whole bag? Like how do you get a whole bag of them
So they
or?
come in like a see-through bag with like just a label, whatever company has them. Just a see-through bag, yeah. They come
Mhm.
in a bag, boil them for a bit, and then add your whatever you want to add for your stew. They actually have them sold online here. I found that the other day. I want to actually buy some for myself because they package them and they look, like regular ass food. I also find it really funny. People like talk about eating worms as nasty. But we eat prawns, and that's like eating caterpillars, but like just from under the ocean.
I
Honestly, it's the
agree.
same thing. It's the same
I
thing.
I totally agree. I do not shade anybody else's food. Like it's unusual
Mhm.
for, when I hear that, but it just makes me curious, like, what does it taste like? What's the texture? What do we put it in? And you make it sound delicious. So
I eat everything, so I can't really say anything. I eat like anything. I could eat whatever, honestly. So don't trust me all the time because I eat anything.
that's part of the fun because you get to try different things. You get to, experience different flavors that you never even were exposed to growing up. And to me, eating is like part of the way to explore the world.
Have you ever had grasshoppers before?
No.
Those are good.
Yeah. I've heard they're
Tasty as
crunchy. Like
hell.
they fry them though, right?
Hmm.
Like, hmm,
They're crunchy. Love
yeah.
that too.
I would try it. Well, Fari, I really had such an awesome time talking with you and learning more about your language and more about your culture, and more about you. Thank you so much for this conversation.
It was really great talking to you again to express myself and, you know, speak about my culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I want to ask you my last question,
Okay.
because we want to end on a fun note. My last question: do you have any jokes, popular sayings, tongue twisters, cool slang words, idioms, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Shona or in Ndebele to share and to teach us?
Any words of wisdom? Let me think. I have a cool saying. It's not that cool, but I think it's cool enough. When you're talking to someone and they say, do you a really good favor or like they help you with something, you'd say to them, waspaka. Like you spark me, waspaka.
Waspaka?
Waspaka. Yeah.
Waspaka.
Yeah. I like that.
Oh,
Waspaka.
Waspaka. I'm gonna write that
Hmm.
down. I like that.
Hmm.
So that's like you spark me.
Like, yeah, like thank you. Like shout out, like, waspaka.
And is that's a slang? That's
That's
a
slang, yeah.
okay.
English and Shona.
Thanks for teaching me that. Thanks for teaching our listeners that little piece of slang. And before I let you go, just
Mhm.
one little last thing after you've been talking to someone for quite some time, wherever you are in the diaspora, you could be in Zim, you could be in England or Australia or wherever. But you're about to go your separate ways. In Shona, what would be the best way to say goodbye?
Like we say bye in English, but
Bye.
like, yeah, we just say
Mhm.
bye bye. Bye bye. If someone's like leaving, you'd say Famba Jakanaka.
Famba Jakanaka.
Exactly.
Famba Jakanaka.
Hmm.
And what does that
That's it.
mean?
It means like go well. Go well.
Famba Shaka. Say it again.
Famba Jakanaka.
Famba Jakanaka.
Yeah.
Fari. Famba Shakanaka.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and I'll be talking to you soon.
It was amazing. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.